And here it is, the moment that defines years of pain, trial, and the relentless pursuit of justice. The entire courtroom falls into a heavy silence as the judge prepares to deliver one of the most consequential sentences in Florida's history. You can almost feel the gravity pressing down on everyone present. Each word that leaves the judge's mouth carries the unbearable weight of 17 lost lives. Lives that will never return, but whose memories now echo through this chamber of law.
It's the sentence of the court as follows. Count 1 of the indictment, the murder in the first degree of Luke Hoyer. The court imposes a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. Murder in the first degree of Luke Hoyer. The court imposes a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Life without parole. Those 3 words seal his fate forever. It means he will never again walk free, never breathe the air beyond prison walls. In Florida, that's as close as it comes to the death penalty, without the lethal injection. Notice how the judge repeats this phrase again and again. It's not just formality. It's a deliberate rhythm, a drumbeat of accountability, spoken once for every life lost, ensuring none are forgotten in the long shadow of tragedy.
Count 2 of the indictment, the murder in the first degree of Martin Duque Anquiano. The court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 3 of the indictment, the murder in the first degree of Gina Montalto. The court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 4 of the indictment, the murder in the first degree of Alexander Schachter. The court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 5 of the indictment, the murder in the first degree of Elena Petty. The court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 6 of the indictment for the murder in the first degree of Alyssa Al-Hadef. The court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. To count 7 of the indictment for the murder in the first degree of Nicholas Dworet, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without...
And yet, hearing it doesn't make it easier. Each count read aloud represents a child, a life full of dreams, laughter, and future moments that will never come. The repetition isn't mere procedure. It's a symbol of remembrance. With every name spoken, the court reaffirms that each victim mattered, that justice isn't just a system, but for every soul taken too soon. The courtroom is more than a place of judgment today. It's a place of mourning and resolve.
For the murder in the first degree of Helena Ramsey, the court imposes a life sentence, mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 9, for the murder in the first degree of Christopher Hickson, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 10, for the murder in the first degree of Carmen Schentrup, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 11, for the murder in the first degree of Aaron Feiss, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 12, for the murder in the first degree of Scott Beagle, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 13, the murder in the first degree of Meadow Pollock, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 14, for the murder in the first degree of Kara Loughran, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 15, for the murder in the first degree of Joaquin Oliver, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 16, for the murder in the first degree of Jamie Gutenberg, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 17, for the murder in the first degree of Peter Wang, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 18, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Ashley Baez, the court imposes a life sentence with a minimum mandatory.
Here's a quick legal insight. When the judge mentions mandatory life under Florida's 10-20 life statute, it means his hands are bound by law. This statute enforces strict minimums for crimes involving guns. 10 years for possession, 20 for firing, and life if that act causes injury or death. It's Florida's unwavering message. If you use a gun to harm, there's no leniency, no loophole, no escape. Justice, by design, leaves no room for mercy in these cases.
Silverstein is 25 to life?
Yeah.
Or do I?
We're asking for life, Your Honor.
With a mandatory life sentence under Florida's 10-20 life statute. Count 19, with the attempted murder, for the attempted murder of William Olson, the court imposes a life sentence with a 20-year minimum mandatory sentence under Florida's 10-20 life statute. Count 20, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Kashaba Magnapuram, the court imposes a life sentence with a mandatory life sentence under Florida's 10-20 life statute. Count 21, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Justin Colton, the court imposes a life sentence with a 20-year minimum mandatory prison sentence under Florida's 10-20 life statute. Count 22, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Alexander Dworet, the court imposes a life sentence with a 20-year minimum mandatory prison sentence under Florida's 10-20.
Think about this. By now, we're deep into double-digit counts. Each one carries a separate life sentence, and they're being stacked consecutively. That means they don't run at the same time, but one after another. In practical terms, it's mathematically impossible to serve them all, but symbolically, it's eternal. Each life taken is honored with its own measure of justice. Each count, a reminder that every victim mattered individually.
Attempted murder in the first degree of Genesis Valentin, the court imposes a life sentence with a 20-year minimum mandatory prison sentence under Florida's 10-20 life statute. Count 24, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Daniela Menescal, the court imposes a life sentence with a 20-year minimum mandatory prison sentence under Florida's 10-20 life statute. Count 25, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Samantha Grady, the court imposes a life sentence with a minimum mandatory of 20 years Florida State Prison under Florida's 10-20 life statute. Count 26, for the attempted murder. Mr. Silverstein, I see you're standing up. Did I
Just in case.
misspeak? Okay. Count 26, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Samantha Fuentes. I'm imposing a life sentence with a minimum mandatory of life under Florida's 10-20 life statute. Count 27, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Isabel Checker. The court imposes a life sentence with a minimum mandatory prison sentence of 20 years Florida State Prison under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 28, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Samantha Mayor, the court imposes a life sentence with a life minimum mandatory prison sentence under Florida 1020 life statute. Count 29, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Benjamin Wickender, the court imposes a life sentence with a minimum mandatory of life in prison under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 30, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Madeline Wilford, the court imposes a life sentence with a minimum mandatory of 20 years Florida State Prison under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 31, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Marian Kabachenko, the court imposes a life sentence with a 20-year minimum mandatory sentence under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 32, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Stacy Lapel, the court imposes a life sentence with a 20-year minimum mandatory prison sentence under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 33, for the attempted murder of Anthony Borges, the court imposes a life sentence with a mandatory life sentence under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 34, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Kyle Lamont, the court imposes a life sentence with a minimum mandatory of life in prison under Florida's 1020 life statute. I am ordering that each and every count of the indictment run consecutive to one another.
Your Honor, on count 30, that is at 25 to life, not 20 years.
Madeline Wilford.
Okay, excuse me. I misspoke. On count 30, there is alleged and proven the use of a firearm, discharge, and infliction of great bodily harm on Madeline Wilford. So I am correcting my previously imposed sentence. It is a life sentence with a mandatory life sentence under Florida's 1020 life statute. Again, I am ordering that...
And there it is, the ultimate legal hammer. Consecutive sentences. Even if time somehow bent reality, there's no coming back from this. The justice system is making sure the punishment reflects not just the crime, but the magnitude of the suffering caused.
Indictment for each sentence is to run consecutive, that is, one after another. I'm ordering all mandatory court costs, all costs of prosecution. I'm ordering the costs of incarceration of the defendant by the Broward Sheriff's Office. I'm also imposing a public defender fee pursuant to Florida statute. I'm ordering restitution for each victim as previously named in counts 1 through 34 of the indictment, with the specific amount to be determined at a later time. I am ordering pursuant to 943-325, the defendant is to submit to 2 samples of his blood or less intrusive method for purposes of the DNA bank. Mr. Cruz, you are remanded to the custody of the Department of Corrections to complete the mandatory life sentences imposed by the court. You have 30 days to appeal the judgment and sentence of the court. If you fail to appeal within the allotted time period, or you fail to contest the imposition of any of the fees or costs imposed during that 30-day period, you will waive said appeal. I am also granting the state's motion under the Florida equivalent of the Son of Sam law, which means, Mr. Cruz, you will not be able to benefit in any way as far as monies are.
And then comes the Son of Sam law, one of the most powerful victim protection measures in the U.S. It ensures that criminals can't profit from their crimes through books, interviews, or documentaries. Simply put, he can't turn his infamy into income. Even beyond bars, justice follows him. The punishment doesn't end at sentencing. It continues, ensuring that not even fame can be built upon tragedy.
You committed. In addition, I am going to order the Department of Corrections to garnish the commissary account of Mr. Cruz until all of restitution and costs of prosecution and costs of the sheriff's office are paid in full. The Department of Corrections, I don't know where you're going, but they can assign that duty to their local office, where they will charge an applicable fee and garnish your commissary until all of these amounts that I have previously ordered are paid in full, specifically the costs of the sheriff, the state, and any restitution that is ordered. Is there anything else from either side?
Not from the state, Your Honor.
Is there anything from the defense? It was previously waived. Then there was some discussion about whether it could be in a death penalty case, but the defense is maintaining their waiver of a PSI. Mr. Cruz, you're still under oath. Are you in agreement that you're not asking for a PSI in this case? Okay. Is there anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right, he's remanded to the custody.
1,718 days in custody. And now, an entire lifetime more. The gavel falls for the final time, and the courtroom begins to empty. But for the families sitting in those benches, justice doesn't bring peace. The sentence may close the legal chapter, but the pain remains, unending. The real question lingers in the silence. Can justice ever feel complete when no punishment can truly balance the loss of 17 innocent lives?
Corrections. And he's to be given credit in the amount of 1,718 days time served.